lifestyle education. We talk about some of the topics that have been suggested by you. Today, we are discussing a very vital topic, fiber intake. A couple of months ago, there were some sessions on, I think, bowel cancer and a few other health topics where the GPs emphasized the importance of taking fiber. Now, there are recommendations or government guidelines on how much we should be having a day, 30 grams. And the evidence shows that, you know, very few people are having anything close to the 30 grams. How can we increase our intake of fiber? Number one, do we even know how much 30 grams looks like? Do we understand 30 grams? You know, we need to understand all of these things before we can actually follow the guidelines. Today, we have with us Jasmine, who is not a new face. She's been here a couple of times to talk to us about nutrition and always linking it to our foods. And she's going to lead a discussion on fiber intake, linking it to our African and Caribbean diet. So wherever you are, Facebook, YouTube, please do send us your questions and we will address them for you. If you're on the chat box or you are with us on Zoom as well, please do send us your questions. We want it to be, you know, interactive. So don't wait till the end. Just raise your hand, put your questions in the chat box and we will address them for you. So on this note, Jasmine, I hand it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Lovely introduction. All right, I'm going to share my screen, everyone. So bear with me. It should go smoothly. All right. I feel like this is sharing well. Yeah. Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you. So as Fibre explained, then this evening we're going to be having a nice overview and kind of going into what fibre is, and also looking at what or how we can increase our fibre intake, why we should be increasing our fibre intake, and specifically around African and Caribbean diets. So welcome to today's session. What's a bit of a delay? Just going to go back. Another one. So my clicks are quicker than the slides. Amazing, right? So I said this. So what we'll be covering is what is fibre, why do we need it, how do you increase your fibre intake, and some practical summary and some practical ways of what we should be doing. So what is fibre? I don't know if we know, but there's essentially three large groups of fibre, or three kind of large categories that fibre can be split into. And within this is also kind of a further type of fibre, which we'll kind of talk about in more detail, something called FODMAPs, which is an acronym for something even longer, which we'll go into a bit more detail. So we've got the three main fibres, which are insoluble fibre, soluble fibre, and something called resistant starch. The additional type, which is kind of a combination of insoluble and soluble and resistant starch, is something called FODMAPs. So that kind of creates its own fourth type of fibre, which we'll be kind of discussing in a bit more detail as to what the different letters within FODMAPs mean and what sort of effect it can have on our gut and to people who might be a little bit sensitive to certain types of foods and also certain types of fibres. So if we start off by kind of discussing the difference between soluble and insoluble fibre, essentially soluble fibre is foods, it's foods which allows it to be dissolved into the water and into the water of our gut, and it forms like a gel-like consistency. So it makes it a lot easier for our gut to pass stool motions, and it just makes things move a lot more smoothly within our gut. Having a diet which is reasonably high in soluble fibre can help reduce our blood sugar spikes, So that would happen if you were to eat a high carbohydrate meal, for example, yam or plantain or bread or pasta. So choosing the more soluble fibre versions of those foods can help to reduce those kind of massive peaks in our blood sugar. And they also have loads of various health benefits, which we'll come on to a little bit later. And then versus insoluble fibre, so the main difference being is that insoluble fibre doesn't absorb in the gut. So it's that roughage. So it's the type of fibre which tends to get down to a larger colon and add bulk to our stool. It doesn't blend easily with water, and it aids in a slightly different way, but with the same purpose. It does aid the digestion of food, and it keeps quite intact in our gut. So like I said, it acts like a bulking agent. So if our bowels tend to be quite loose, having a diet which is higher in insoluble fibre, so that roughage food will help add a bit more consistency to our stool, so it goes a bit more smoothly and makes it a bit more comfortable for us to pass our bowel motions. So some examples of soluble and insoluble fibre. So we find that typically soluble types of fibre can be found in things like fruits and vegetables. So I've kind of got an array of examples that we typically see naturally in our traditional Caribbean African cuisines. Things like pumpkin leaves, pecan leaves, spinach, callaloo, okra, even things like lentils and other legumes, be it chickpeas, pigeon peas. So yeah, you can just see quite an array of lists there. So like I said before, these are the types of foods which are going to dissolve quite easily in the water within our gut and help things pass a lot more smoothly. Also, things like oats and cornmeal can be part of our examples of soluble fibre. And then the other types of fibre, which was the one that was going to increase the bulk of our stool, would be anything which is made up of whole grains. So be it any breads or any flatbreads, which uses whole grain flours or flours which have got seeds or the husks still around it. That's what's going to add bulk to our stool, and it's not going to be easily digested or digested at all, really. So it kind of passes a lot more, so it helps our bowels to pass a lot more smoothly. Other examples could be yam, cassava, taro, tiger nuts, teff. I've got tiger nuts twice, that's how important it is. But those are kind of examples of foods which are going to add a bit more insoluble fibre into our diet. Another easy way to know if it's insoluble or soluble is if it takes a lot, if you take a lot to chew it, it's probably going to be a form of insoluble fibre. Even things like choosing like whole grain rice, whole grain pastas, if we include kind of Western foods into our diet, those are going to be the ones which are going to increase our fibre and have a bit more insoluble fibre into our daily intake. Now, the third type of fibre is something called resistant starch. And we typically find resistant starch in our carbohydrate foods, so things like, well, we have potatoes, yam, pasta, rice. They tend to have resistant starch in it. And there's an image of a fridge there because the resistant starch of those foods increase, particularly when it's been cooked and then cooled down. Now, some starch is resistant to digestion. So the starch, which would normally be broken down quite easily, doesn't actually get broken down because the bonds between the molecules kind of become a bit more tougher for our body to break those down. So it doesn't actually change as it goes through our digestive process. So they kind of act as similar to a insoluble fibre in that it doesn't get broken down. But once it gets lower to our lower end of the gut, we find that sometimes it can be fermented. So the bacteria, which is naturally there, mostly good, some bad bacteria that can be there as well, but they tend to eat, so they can start digesting it, start eating of it, and then it can cause gas as a byproduct. So some people might be slightly intolerant or have a bit of pain associated with having foods which are quite high in resistant starch. So like I said, they tend to be quite higher in foods which are naturally starchy, so things like yams or like dashin, taro, but they can even increase even more if it's cooked and then cooled and reheated or something. So the pros of it is that it can get to the lower gut and then our good bacteria can thrive with it. But the, I guess, con of it is that it can release quite a lot of gas in it in exchange for the good bacteria being able to access this form of fibre in our food. And some other examples of resistant starch I mentioned, things like green banana, really high in resistant starch, bananas, but those which aren't too ripe, so kind of going for ones which have a little bit of green in them. Same with plantains, so kind of going for the ones which aren't too ripe, can really increase our intake of resistant starch. Maize meal, oats are a really good source as well. And like I said, kind of cooked and then reheated starchy foods. So most people are able to tolerate this form of fibre, but like I said, it can cause some fermentation from gut bacteria, which is already in there, and it can cause a bit of winding gas and bloating. But in small amounts, it's not life-threatening or anything. So in small amounts, this would be absolutely fine to have in your diet if we're able to tolerate it. And then the fourth one, which kind of crosses over between insoluble, soluble, and resistant starch foods, really, is something called FODMAPs. So some people might have come across it or heard of it. It has, there's been a lot of popularity in the use of a FODMAP diet to help to resolve or manage pains of kind of gastro upset or bowel discomfort. But I think some people might go down the route without actually fully understanding the background behind it. So we're going to have a little brief background of what FODMAPs are and what a FODMAP diet is. So FODMAP stands for fermentable oligo, di, monosaccharides, and polyphenols. So it's essentially talking about the shape and structure of these carbohydrate chains, whether they're oligo, one, di, two, or mono, one. So kind of like how many chains of carbohydrates there are within that particular food item once it's broken down. And it's essentially whether or not how easy our gut finds to digest it and how well our bacteria finds to digest it as well. Some people might experience flatulence or wind and bloating from having foods which might be high in FODMAPs. And we also find that what tends to happen is a lot of moisture, a lot of fluid is drawn into the gut. So people might find that they suffer things like really loose bowel motions if they have foods which are particularly high in FODMAPs, or if they have loads of foods which might be kind of mid to low range in FODMAPs, but having it all in one go. So it might be why some people might kind of have a stomach upset by having a large fruit salad. If that fruit salad was broken up throughout the course of the day, they'd be absolutely fine. So there were different ways of managing it, and there's different ways of kind of and well, I guess there's one way to understand it, but then once you've got the knowledge, it's figuring out, okay, what am I intolerant to? What can I manage? And is it a case of I need to separate the amount of high FODMAP foods, or are there certain FODMAP foods that I absolutely cannot tolerate, no matter how, no matter what the concentration of that particular food item is. So some examples of the main FODMAP food groups, which these are all types of fibre as well, would be fructose, which is the main carbohydrate in fruits, lactose, the main carbohydrate in dairy, milk, cheese, yogurts, fructans, which is the main carbohydrate in some wheat products, galactans, which is the main carbohydrate in beans and pulses, and then polyols, which is the main carbohydrate in sweeteners and things like mints. Artificial sugars particularly are made of polyphenols as well. And they can also be found in some fruits. So it really, just depends on kind of which one you might be intolerant to, or which one an individual might be intolerant to. Also, depending on where the food has been grown, can affect the amount of FODMAPs is in that food. For example, a lot of the research that we know around FODMAPs is largely from Australia, and the farming taking place in the agriculture of Australia. So it can be quite difficult to use those food groups to the food that we have in the UK or in the Caribbean or in parts of Africa. So it might be that an apple might have a certain amount of fructose in Australia, whereas the fructose levels in West Africa might be completely different. So that's important to note, and this is why doing a FODMAP diet kind of is really important, that if someone did need to go down that route, they do it, you know, with close management by a dietitian or a specialist nutritionist, because it can lead to, you know, quite a restricted diet if someone was on it for quite a long period of time. So the reason why I talk about restriction of, and particularly a FODMAP diet, is because of something called IBS. So IBS stands for irritable bowel syndrome. There's quite a few acronyms in here, and it's actually quite a common condition. It affects the digestive system, and we find that the main symptoms that are associated with IBS are things like stomach cramps, bloating, altered bowel habits. So that could be from going from constipation to loose bowel motions, or a combination of the two. We also find that with IBS, the symptoms are worsened by eating particular foods. Other symptoms might be things like passing mucus in bowel motions, or having things like nausea, vomiting, feeling lethargic, having fatigue. So there's quite a spectrum of symptoms, and you're very unlikely to see that two people will present with the same symptoms. And also you might find that one person might have IBS, but will present different symptoms over the course of the week. Or they might have no symptoms, you know, one day, and then all of a sudden have symptoms. I think we can all kind of resonate or kind of share an example of, you know, having a particularly spicy meal and then feeling discomfort, or having too many beans. You know, baked beans makes you fart. We know that it's a rhyme that we've been told. So kind of the fact that the beans causing, you know, flatulence, we know that that's, in the severe case, that could be a form of IBS. But in small amounts, then it's kind of like, you know, part and parcel of eating a higher fibre diet. So it's all dependent on how much these symptoms can affect your daily living. If we're finding that the stomach cramps are so unbearable that, you know, we're having to avoid going out, it's affecting social activity, then it's something that we probably have to look at investigating further to see if there is a particular food that's causing these triggers to either happen, or if they're causing these symptoms to be worse. In terms of causes of IBS, again, it's just as varied as the symptoms, really. It could be a natural intolerance to a particular food, be it onions or garlic, which someone might be, you know, they know that they're intolerant to that, so they might avoid foods altogether with, you know, foods which are based around those ingredients. It might be the result of a previous infection. We've actually seen quite a massive increase in people having long COVID-related IBS. So they've caught COVID. They might be suffering or not be suffering at all from many of the symptoms, but all of a sudden, foods which they could tolerate, they no longer can tolerate. So we're noticing quite a big increase in IBS information, IBS referrals for those people who had COVID in the past. It might be that foods are passing through the gut too quickly or too slowly for a number of reasons. It could be due to a recent investigation or an operation, or some sort of change of medication. And the side effects of that might have caused a bit of IBS. Something really important to note is that our guts are very sensitive, even without, you know, kind of having a sensitivity, but they're designed to be extremely sensitive, because if we think about it, they're exposed to everything. You know, as soon as we eat something, they're getting access to all the germs and viruses and everything that's out there. Our gut is potentially kind of having access to those. So the nervous system around it has to be responsive and sensitive to respond to any dangerous kind of outer bacteria. And in some cases, it might be that it's so overly sensitive that it's inappropriately reacting to some foods. So it's this kind of, and it might be overreacting to more foods over others. Stress as well, we might have heard that our gut and our brain axis, of the gut and brain axes, which is essentially saying that our brains and our guts are so in tune with each other that if we feel stressed, our stomachs, you know, can start doing somersaults. We might have heard the term of, you know, I've got butterflies in my stomach. You know, if we're feeling nervous, it's not uncommon for people to feel sick if they're stressed, and that kind of gut-brain axis is so strong that some foods, which someone might be slightly intolerant to anyway, if they're then in a stressful situation, the body becomes even more sensitive to it, and then that can trigger some IBS symptoms. So it can be, and just kind of speaking about this, I hope you can sense the complexity of a condition like IBS, and how there isn't just a one size fits all for any one person or at any one time. It is multifactorial, and it takes a while to kind of understand what fibre could be the trigger, and what fibres can be used to help manage and resolve these symptoms as well. Now, in terms of diagnosis, so as you, I hope, can hear, it is a very complex condition, and it can differ depending on the person, depending on the time of month, depending on, you know, what the person's gone through that day. But generally, the only way to diagnose IBS is to rule out other conditions. So we will take a full blood count test, or take a blood sample to check our full blood count. We'll also be looking at erythrocyte sedimentation rate. So just looking at what's kind of happening with the blood. We're taking sample of a C-reactive protein just to see if there's any signs of inflammation. And then we'll also be taking a celiac test. So it could be a biopsy, or it could be a screen or something. So these tests are essentially trying to rule out any kind of bowel cancers or stomach cancers, also trying to rule out something called IBD, which is irritable bowel disease. And that would be something like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, which would have its kind of own set of guidance and its own management plan. And we're also trying to rule out celiac disease, because again, that has its own management plan and its own set of symptoms that we're trying to monitor. And so, yes, if all these tests come out negative, then most cases that person's then diagnosed is then given the diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome. And for some people, it can be comforting to know that, you know, that there is a diagnosable condition, but then also at the same time can be slightly disheartening to know that there isn't a cure for it. It's simply trying to manage the symptoms as much as possible. But with, you know, kind of a strong care team, knowledgeable dietitians, clinicians, and also trying to support our mental health as well. That those three combined can help to get our symptoms of any IBS down and make it a lot more controllable. So let's say someone was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome. What would be the management plan for that? The first thing we'd want to do is to try and get a foundation of healthy eating. Looking at what the diet currently is, looking at the lifestyle, and seeing if there's any medication that can be prescribed to help target any specific symptoms. So something like omeprazole or loperamide to maybe manage the stomach cramps and the kind of loose stools. And then in terms of healthy eating, just started checking, is there an excess of fast food? Is a really high fat diet? Is there loads of caffeine? Are there loads of artificial sweeteners? Is there a lot of alcohol or kind of a lot of binge drinking? Is there a lot of smoking? Those sort of things would be the first thing we need to look at. One, because in most cases, IBS symptoms can be resolved just by going to a healthy eating diet. And if that isn't the case, we want to make sure the foundation for any other further intervention is a healthy eating diet and healthy lifestyle. So before doing other things like looking at a modified fibre or looking at a FODMAP diet, we want to check that we've at least tried to get to the basics, get a healthy diet, get a healthy lifestyle, and then look at the next steps from there. The second form of intervention would be something called like a modified fibre diet. So we'll be looking at what you're eating, seeing if we need to increase your soluble fibre intake or decrease your soluble fibre intake if it's a particularly high fruit and vegetable, like excessively high fruit and vegetable diet. Do we need to think about like how are we spacing these foods out? Do we need to do more combining of fibres? So looking at increasing our intake of insoluble fibre with maybe reducing some of the soluble fibre intakes. And then also looking at some other additional dietary interventions. So things like peppermint tea has been shown to help ease stomach cramps and ease bloating. Either the tea or the capsules to take after or before a meal. Something like lactase enzymes, which we can get in capsules to take if you were to have any dairy foods. So some people might struggle, or some people might know that dairy really causes them, it's kind of IBS style symptoms, but reducing it or removing it from their diet and then going to dairy-free alternatives isn't an option. So taking something like a lactase enzyme, which just helps to break down the lactose, that sugar, and the sugar that we find in dairy, can sometimes just help ease some of those symptoms. And then a bit of a controversial one, but some people find that it helps, some people find that it doesn't. But turmeric powder or turmeric powder, so using that in cooking and with black pepper to kind of help the active ingredient to be more available for our gut to use, has been shown to, yes, help support and manage IBS symptoms, particularly symptoms of gut pains, kind of stomach cramps and bloating. It's not, and interestingly again, we find that turmeric powder has got a higher component of the active ingredient than if you were to buy like turmeric tablets. So just the standard turmeric that you get from your supermarket shelf can actually help any IBS symptoms that you might be experiencing. And then if those two don't work, the third option, which is like the last resort, is the FODMAP diet. And the reason why it is the last resort is because it is a 12-week exclusion diet where all of the I haven't shown a list because it's quite overbearing and quite overwhelming. You'd be instructed to exclude a list of very high FODMAP foods, replacing some of those, with kind of non-dairy alternatives or like non-wheat alternatives, for example. And then, so essentially, we'd advise you to exclude all those for 12 weeks to try and kind of get your gut to a point of rest. And what should happen is that all your IBS symptoms should go. And if it doesn't, then it might be something kind of outside of your diet which could be causing the IBS symptoms, so be it stress, lifestyle, exercise, and we need to focus on. But if we find that your symptoms do resolve with kind of excluding all the FODMAP foods, then we would like strategically then reintroduce each of the foods one by one. And the point of that is then to find which food could be your trigger. Well, firstly, which food group could be your trigger, and then whittling it down to any particular food that could be a trigger. And then also trying to work out if you've got a limit. So it might be that you can have a milky coffee, but once you have two milky coffees and like a creamy dessert after, then that might be too much. Or it might be that you're okay with kind of beans in the morning for breakfast, but to have a bean-based meal again in the evening might be a bit too much for your gut. So the point of the FODMAP diet is to kind of strategically work out what foods are causing the triggers, and then what your limit is if you do have a limit. So aside from IBS, which kind of sounds quite scary, but there are so many reasons, well, 7, I've whittled it down to 7 reasons which it's good to have a diet which is high in fibre. So we know that those people who do have a high fibre diet tend to have normalised bowel movements, or it can help to normalise bowel movements. It can help to maintain a bowel health as well, because like I said, our gut hosts so many bacteria which have various functions, essential functions. In order for them to thrive and grow and be healthy themselves, they need to eat healthy, and they love fibre. So give them more fibre, they'll flourish, and they'll be there to ward off any bad bacteria which might pass its way into our gut. We also know that it helps to lower cholesterol. So that cholesterol, which is particularly associated with heart health, or with causing poor heart health, something called LDL cholesterol. So having a diet which is high in fibre, high in roughage, can help bring that down. We also know that it can help control blood sugar levels. So in people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, having a diet which is high in fibre is really good at reducing those massive peaks in blood sugar and then massive drops. It does that by helping to reduce how quickly the blood sugar is absorbed into the blood and into the cells. So it's kind of absorbed more gradually, and then we're not going to have that massive peak in our blood sugars, which can happen if we were to have a lower fibre intake. It aids in achieving a healthy weight. So having a diet which is high in insoluble fibre, so the roughage, can help us feel fuller. And then having the soluble fibre, so those fruits and vegetables, again, same thing, can help us feel fuller for longer. And it means we're not snacking on things which might be lower in fibre, so crisps, biscuits, sweeties. It tastes great, but in terms of in terms of feeling fuller and in terms of aiding any healthy weight loss, it's not going to do that. So having a higher fibre diet and choosing higher fibre snacks would allow you to do that. Helps you to live longer, essentially, because you're reducing your risk of poorly controlled diabetes, you're reducing your risk of unintentional weight gain, and that has its own list of associated diet-related diseases. It improves your bowel motion, so that again reduces any bowel-related diseases or conditions. So yeah, just in general, having a high fibre diet will prevent any diet-related diseases, thus helping you to live longer. And then last point, improves your mood, mental health and well-being. And that's essentially because, like I said, that gut-brain axis is so strong. And if you're having a diet which is allowing your gut health to flourish, that's only going to make you feel better and ultimately improve your mood as well. Also, those foods which are high in fibre tend to be natural, plant-based, and they just in general are going to be high in vitamins, minerals, great sources of protein, which is going to be a natural mood boosters and naturally be good for your mental health and well-being. So all pros at the moment. So I'm just moving this. So effects of not having enough fibre. So the effects can be associated with things like constipation and or diarrhea. So if we haven't got enough of a particular type of fibre, there either can be not enough bulk or there could be too much bulk, and both conditions are not ideal. We want to be in the middle where we're kind of having a regular bowel motions, whatever might be normal for you, once a day, twice a day, once every other day, whatever's normal. a simple gut biome. So yeah, if we've got kind of minimal biodiversity in terms of our gut health, we know that in terms of kind of warding off and fighting off potential infections, it's going to be a lot harder. So we want to try and increase that biodiversity of our gut. And one way to do that is to try and have a really nice varied fibre diet. High risk of developing type 2 diabetes, just because if your diet is low in fibre, you're probably eating foods which are potentially more processed and has that fibre stripped away from it. So particularly for something like white pasta, white rice, white breads, it hasn't got that fibre to prevent that massive peak in blood sugar. So if we're consistently having easily digestible, easy kind of sugar spiking or blood sugar spiking foods, the risk of developing type 2 diabetes is going to be a lot higher. And if you already have type 2 diabetes, the ability to manage it well is going to be more difficult. It's also associated with a high risk of central weight gain. And again, that has its associated health complications centered around type 2 diabetes, but also around our heart health as well. And just kind of the health of our vital organs. We want to make sure they're as healthy as possible. And one way to do that is to try and increase our fibre. And we also know that, yeah, having a lower fibre diet can increase our risk of having bowel cancers and gastrointestinal cancers. So kind of our gut digestive tract is just more likely to experience, yeah, kind of those sort of conditions, more so because if we're not having high fibre foods, we're probably having very high protein or high animal-based products, high processed foods, which aren't great for our overall gut health. And lastly, unintentional weight gain. And just a note, it's an unfortunate fact, but Black African and Black Caribbean groups living in the UK are at a higher risk of type 2 diabetes than white British populations. For a number of reasons. It's not just to do with the fibre, the amount of fibre that we eat, but I think definitely the accessibility of or the accessibility and affordability of cultural foods will bring that risk down. So things like trying to incorporate things like okra, all those ground provisions into our diet as much as possible is ultimately going to bring our risk of things like type 2 diabetes like much lower. So our risk is going to be much lower if we try and increase our intake of foods which are less processed. I thought that we're going to make this balanced. So I wanted to kind of do the other side of the coin, which is what are the effects of having too much fibre? So similarly, in the effects of having not having enough, too much fibre can make you constipated and or have diarrhea. We can get those IBS symptoms. It may not be actually diagnosed IBS symptoms, but things like flatulence, or bloating, having kind of excessive burping, acid reflux, that can all happen by having too much fibre in our diet. Temporary weight gain for two reasons. If we're constipated, we're going to be slightly heavier, feel a bit more like, discomfort than we would otherwise do. Our central kind of our waist circumference might be a little bit bigger. And also if we've had a lot of fibre, would have drawn a lot of water as well into our gut. So there might be temporary, lapse of weight gain. That's not to say to completely avoid fibre. The effects of having not enough fibre completely outweigh the effects of having too much. And yeah, if you were diagnosed with something like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, which are those irritable bowel diseases, then having too much fibre can trigger those symptoms. But the main thing is to try and have a modest amount. So we'll kind of go into what is a modest amount, how much should we be having. Just to know, so in the general public, so there's someone who isn't diagnosed with IBS or IBD, there aren't that many negatives of having a high fibre diet. So temporary weight gain, some bloating, gas and some acid reflux, could be the worst thing, and maybe that'd be occasional constipation or diarrhea, which could be the worst thing that can happen. But again, that can be managed by trying to reduce the amount of fibre you have the next couple of days or so. So how much is enough? Hiba kind of mentioned, which I thought was great, that we should actually be aiming for 30 grams. So that's the UK recommendation. I thought I'd kind of give you an overview of what different parties are saying on how much we should be having. So in the States, they're suggesting about 25 to 30 grams. Some actually decided to kind of split on how much, depending on your gender, how much you should be having, but general adults should be having about 25 to 30. But I mean, the average American is only getting 15 grams of fibre a day. We take the UK as an example, we should be getting about 30. The average Brit's only getting about 20 grams a day. And then we got a note from the World Health Organization. So it's 400 grams of fruit and vegetables. It's not to say you meant to have 400 grams of fibre, because that would be a lot. But their advice is that as long as you're getting about 400 grams of fruit and veg, which is 5 portions a day, then you're getting as much fibre as you need, which I think is a nice way to put that into real terms. So 5 portions of fruit and veg will get you about 30 grams of fibre a day. How can we get fibre into our diet? I've listed 6 ways, but there's definitely a few more ways we can do it, and even more imaginative ways we can do it. We can, like I said, firstly, aim for 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. A portion being what you can hold in your hand, or what is a complete fruit. So it's like 2 small satsumas, a banana, handful of grapes. Those sort of things will constitute as a portion. Like 2 palm-sized or 2 handfuls of green leafy greens, so be it spinach or callaloo, that will constitute as a portion, or like a side salad, which can be filled into hands and be classed as a portion. So trying to get those in a day would be kind of, I guess, the minimum of what we want to do. And then on top of that, making some food swaps. So if we're currently using white bread, white pasta, white wholemeal products, if we can, white kind of grain products, if we can swap to whole grain, wholemeal, granary, seeded, that's in a simple way to get an extra dose of fibre into your diet. Swapping from crisps to popcorn, again, a really simple way to get some additional fibre into your diet, or even something as as nuts as well, just a handful of unsalted, preferably. Nuts would be another way to add some additional fibre into your diet, or sprinkling that into cooking or into salads as well would be another great way of doing that. In terms of the portions of fruit and veg, so 2 of those portions can be included in your lunch and in your evening meal. So it can be a bit of side salad, some cut up vegetables, an extra handful of greens or frozen veg into any stews or soups that you're making, or any sauces. Throw in an extra onion, throw in some lentils or beans, things like that. On the topic of lentils and beans, if we were to swap one of our evening meals from a meat-based meal to a meat-free meal, replacing it with something like beans and lentils, kind of, again, trying to keep it whole, trying to avoid too much processed foods as much as possible, that's a really nice way to get some extra fibre into your diet. And lastly, again, I mentioned this earlier, but adding things like seeds into your salads, or like seeds or nuts into your salads, stews, yogurts, smoothies, and there's such a variety of nuts and seeds available now. We can get them mixed, we can get them ground, all really great ways of adding additional fibre. The I guess note I would say with adding extra seeds, or just adding extra fibre in general into your diet, is to definitely match that with the amount of fluid that you're taking. So we should be having at least 2 litres of fluid a day. If we're not, and then we increase our fibre, we might find that we actually get constipated because our gut is absorbing, drawing all the moisture into our bowel. There isn't enough moisture to be absorbed. So we're making ourselves constipated. So if we're as we're trying to increase our fibre gradually, again, that's an important note to take. So we want to gradually increase it, not go from 0 to 100. We want to do bit by bit over the course of a month or so, try and implement all these different bits, whilst also getting at least 2 litres of fluid into our diet as well, just to make sure that the moisture which is being absorbed is there to be absorbed, and then our bowels, isn't getting clogged up and things are still are going to be really easy to pass through. So this is just to, just give some pictorial examples and to reiterate some of the 6 ways that we said to increase your fibre, aiming for at least, 5 portions of fruits and vegetables. It could be a small fruit salad, it can even be a smoothie. Keeping it in a fruit salad form would be ideal, just because if it's in a smoothie form, you've already blended some of that fibre up, so your gut isn't getting the chance to have to break it down. Part of that process has already been done for it. So if we give your body as much work to do as possible, so kind of take the fruit in whole, just by chewing it, you're giving your body as much of the fibre as possible. If we're making things like flatbreads, again, to try and swap to a wholemeal-based flour where possible. Things like nuts and seeds, great snacks to have, great snacks to add into meals, add into salads. Something like adding peas to rice and peas, we know that's a very popular side dish, or I guess a food staple in a lot of Caribbean and West African cooking. So if where possible, maybe even increasing the amount of beans that we add to rice, have more meals with rice and peas as opposed to having plain rice, and vary the peas that you use. I say peas, we mean beans. So it could be pigeon peas, it could be black eye, kidney, but mix it up. It's worth experimenting and trying all the different pulses and beans are available in our supermarkets, in our local food shops, in our markets in general as well. Greens are great, just throw them in. It's a really simple way to add extra fibre into our diet, be it fresh, be it tinned, be it frozen. It's going to add extra fibre. And lastly, seeds. So pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, where possible, avoid the salted ones, like I said, in terms of nuts as well, just because we want to try and keep our blood pressure down. We don't want to add additional salt into our diet if we don't need to. Adding things like mixed seeds into our diet would be a really simple way to increase our fibre intake. I hope I've got time for questions. So, in summary, we're meant to have at least, the aim is 30 grams of fibre a day, and you can do that by having 4 to 5 fruits and veg a week, a meat-free meal a week as well. 4 to 5 fruits and veg a day, 1 meat-free meal a week, and then incorporating nuts and seeds as snacks into your day. You can eat a traditional African Caribbean food and still increase your fibre intake. So don't feel like you need to start eating loads of foods which you may not be familiar with or may not naturally buy. The foods which we are accustomed to and our families are have grown up on, those foods are naturally rich in fibre. Don't feel like we need to kind of outsource it. We can get it from the foods which we currently eat, and the stews and soups that we make already. And also just to highlight that type 2 diabetes can be managed with a higher fibre diet, and IBS can be managed, or kind of any kind of gut symptoms. If you're not too sure if you have IBS or not, that can be managed with the help of a dietitian after the necessary tests and investigations have been done to clear up to avoid, well, not to avoid, write off any other conditions that it might be it bowel cancers or irritable bowel disease. And that's it. I hope there's enough time for questions or comments. Yeah, I'd love to hear if there's anything specific you'd like to, me to go over.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jasmine. That was really great, informative. Do we have any questions? I had one because you spent a lot of time explaining IBS and some other conditions. Can you just tell us how a high fiber diet can help in weight loss or getting a healthy weight?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So fiber in itself, so particularly the insoluble fiber, well, we'll go through the different ones. The insoluble fiber, that bulking fiber, which would act as like roughage, it ends up kind of staying in our gut a little bit longer. So just by it naturally sitting there to allow it to be digested, we feel fuller. You know, we shouldn't need those kind of additional or those cues for us to eat again won't be there because there is still something in our gut which needs digesting, and it'll be there for a little while, and not in a dangerous way, but yeah, it's just kind of being undigested there. So because of feeling fuller, the need to snack more on other foods, the need to kind of go for a high sugar, high energy drink isn't there. And then on the basis of that, having a high fiber diet in general, we're not getting those massive peaks in blood sugar and then dips. And when we get those dips, that's where we reach for the sugary snacks or sugary drinks, which are the easiest ways to gain weight. So if we're trying to reduce or to avoid unintentional weight gain, having a high fiber diet, so things like nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables, and including carbohydrates in our meals, because that's another way to get fiber, then we're not going to be snacking on those things which are going to be increasing our kind of sugary intake and our high fat intake. So those would be the main ways that would help with the weight loss. And those foods naturally tend to be lower in calories anyway. If you were someone who was to count calories, you know, a piece of fruit is going to have less calories than a chocolate bar, and it's because it's going to have, and you're also going to get the vitamins attached to it, the minerals attached to it, the fluid attached to it as well. So just overall, you're going to get a lot more benefit from having foods which naturally have higher fiber than those that don't have higher fiber.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have anyone who wants to unmute himself to ask a question? We don't have too much time, but we can take one or two questions before we hand it over to Orlando. I was looking at your take-home messages where you recommend or you encourage us to have what did you say, one meat-free meal a week?
At least.
Oh, well, at least, okay. So I was going to be sure that would be enough, because we African and Caribbeans eat a lot of meat, and you know, you might want us to have more meat-free days rather than just one.
Yeah. That's why I say one, because one sounds doable.
Okay.
And once you've done one, it's easy to do two. Once you've done two, then why not go up to three?
Okay.
So yeah,
so step by step, little drops of water, and then we can have some more meat-free days. Absolutely. I was looking at a typical child's day, and I'm talking about children from within our community. So what you usually see as parents giving to our children would be cereals, you know, so cornflakes, and it's not the wheat branded ones, you know, so just cornflakes and milk. And, you know, I'm sitting here and thinking that if we need to have the 5 a day to be able to meet our daily recommendations, then that is really going to be difficult. I wondered if you could share your typical meal with us, like a day, your typical day, you know, how do you usually eat to make sure you have your 5 a day?
Okay, that's a really good question, actually.
Yeah.
So I'll take today, for example, actually, because today's a really good day.
Yeah.
I had a bowl of porridge with some frozen raspberries, a handful of frozen raspberries, dashed it on top, and then
porridge, oatmeal. Okay.
It's like the oatmeal porridge. I actually put chia seeds over it as well. Sometimes I use mixed seeds, sometimes I use flax seeds. So I tend to do some sort of seed plus some sort of fruit. So it could be berries, it could be apricots, it could be figs. Yeah, so there's typically a porridge in my, it's typically a fruit in my porridge.
Yeah.
And I do that because I don't like to add too much honey. I do add a little bit, but if I know if I do this, I naturally have a sweet tooth. So to combat that, I try to have things which are naturally sweet. So a bit of dried fruit, or to have some berries added into a porridge. So that's one portion. I tend to have a snack mid-mornings. That could be 2 satsumas or some sort of soft fruit. It could be an apple at that time of the day as well. That's my second portion. My lunches tends to be a salad, quite a big salad. If it's not, it might be a sandwich with quite a bit of salad in it. So third portion. And then with my dinner, I tend to have quite a vegetable-based meal as well. I try to rotate. So I live with my family, so we tend to have meat once a week. Meat twice a week, fish once a week, and then veggie twice a week, so Monday to Friday. And then the weekend is the weekend, so that's a bit of a free for all, could be anything. But so that's typically how I would get my fruit and veg in. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That's really impressive, because I realize that a lot of us tend to want to, and when I say a lot of us, I'm always referring to the first generation African and Caribbean immigrants. So back in Africa, most people would have, meals like rice and beans, rice and peas in the morning, which is what you're suggesting, which is really healthy. But then when people migrate, then they tend to want to westernize their eating behavior. So then they start giving cornflakes and milk, which is, not really high in fiber, on, depending on what kind of cornflakes you're having. So it's a lot of these sugar-coated cereals for breakfast, and then at the end of the day, lunch is still not, with lots of vegetables. So it's not surprising it's not surprising that most of us are not meeting our fiber intake. I bet people, our old habits would have been better. I don't have the evidence to show that, but from the way we are eating now, I think that if we could go back to how we used to eat, back in the days, we'd probably be closer to meeting our dietary, our fiber intake and other recommendations than what we are doing now. Right, we just have 2 more minutes, so I'll just like to conclude now. Something you said that I wanted to highlight. You said that too much of fiber intake can have, health consequences. However, the impact of not having it at all outweighs the impact of having too much. Having said that, that's why we are having this session, so the question is, how much is enough? And that is what Jasmine has taken her time to explain to us. How does 30 grams look like for us? It is not anything difficult once you understand what a portion size means. And she's demonstrated that what one portion of vegetables mean, one portion of fruit means to us. And once you are doing that, you should not have a problem with your fiber intake. And that means what? You would be able to maintain a healthy weight. You would prevent, better manage, blood glucose and all of those things she talked about, IBS and all of that. It boils down to having a healthy diet. Jasmine, any final words? 30 seconds.
No, I think I'd also want to just highlight just kind of switching to wholemeal flours, and kind of sticking to as the least processed the food, the better. So when you are having meat-free days, kind of try not to kind of go for the meat alternatives, going for beans, pulses, lentils, like we said, the foods that we're used to. So that'll be my final point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that great presentation. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for staying on. I'd like to hand it over to Elizabeth or anyone from CAHN to introduce Orlando. Thank you, Jasmine.
Bye. Take care, everyone. Bye.
We will share the slides with you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, Jasmine. No one from CAHN coming on? All right, I'll just start straight away. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fitness portion of today's session. Thank you, Jasmine, for that amazing talk. I know you just left, but thank you for that amazing talk. And thank you to Dr. Hibber for facilitating that talk. All right, so as promised today, we have our first boxercise session of this segment. So again, we're gonna learn some new combos, get fit and work the body at the same time. All right, so for today's session, you will need a mat. So you need a mat, plenty of water, and the space. Let me just get my mat out. So mat, plenty of water, and plenty of space. All right, so let's start tonight's session with a warm-up. Okay, let me get my tunes on. So let's start with a warm-up. We're going to start off with a 30-second shadow skip, just to get us right back into that boxing mode. Let's turn these up. All right, people, let's get ready. Get to a space now. It's time to get warm. Time to get into our boxing session. Okay, let's go on the drum. 3, 2, 1, go. That's it, nice and light skip. Okay, next, let's go uppercuts. That's it. Really dip down, twist. Keep that going, people. Three, 2, 1. Next one, let's go hooks. So hooks, both sides, go. Really warming them shoulders up now. Twist those hips. Turn the feet towards the punch. Keep that going. 3, 2, 1. Okay, a quick 10-second break to catch your breath. Okay, get ready. Next one up, we've got straight. Okay, get ready. 3, 2, 1. Let's go straight. Nice and loud. Keep those shoulders nice and engaged. Keep those arms nice and high. Keep that going, keep that going. 3, 2, 1. Back to your shadow skin. Yeah. Keep that going, keep that going. Okay, if you can, go on one leg. Change legs. Three, two, one. Okay, last one. Back into your stance. Now, jab, cross, hook. Let's go. Keep that going, people. 3, 2, 1, and time, people. Okay, quick water break, 20 seconds. Then we're gonna go into round number 1. Okay, people, listen in. Listen in. Okay, round number 1. Let's start off with a bang. Okay, we've got a combination round. All right, in the first minute, we've got 4 punches to execute. Okay, listen in real quick. So, in your stance, again, if you're right-handed, remember I have a mirror image. So left hand forward, just below the eye. Right hand just below the eye. Left foot forward. Okay, get nice and comfy. All right, make sure you got balance, but you can still explode. Left-handed, you're here. Right hand under the eye, left hand under the eye, right foot forward. Make sure you're nice and comfy. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to switch back. All right, nice and easy. First moves. Jab, cross, hook, knockout, cross. Nice and hard. Watch again. Jab, cross, left hook, boom, punch. All right, people that have done box exercise before on these calls, remember that body work. Remember that. Remember, boxing is a full body exercise, and the power comes from the floor upwards. All right. A lot of people think it's all about the arms and the back and the shoulders. Your power comes from the legs. Okay. You get that power. You drive up from the floor. All right. So nice and sharp here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Knockout. Look at my body work. Look at my footwork. 1, 2, 3. Power. Okay. That's your first minute, guys. That's your first minute. Okay. Let's get ready now. We've got 60 seconds of jab, cross, hook, left hook, cross. Get ready. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Show me that first minute. Nice and strong. Come on. Keep that going. 30 seconds. Keep those punches nice and high. Remember, you're punching a mirror image of yourself. We're going to aim around the cheeks and the chin. All right? So no punches here or here. Keep them at your level. Keep it going. Okay, let's pause it there. So let's add to it now. All right. So after that last cross, let's put in another hook at the cross. So it's gonna go like this. Watch this. Jab, cross, hook, cross, hook, cross. Watch one more time. Jab, cross, hook, cross, hook, cross. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Show me that second minute. Let's go. go, people. 20 seconds to go. Ten seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, final minute, people. Now let's add to it again. So at the end of that last cross, let's add 2 uppercuts for speed, nice and quick. So watch the whole combo. In your guard, jab, cross, hook, cross, hook, cross, boom, boom, nice and quick. One more time. Cross, hook, cross, hook, cross, hook, 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 hook. Start again. Let's go. Last minute. 3, 2, 1, go. Keep that going, people. That's halfway. Keep that going. Come on. Last 15 seconds. Last 10. 3, 2, 1. And relax, my people. Ding, ding, ding. That's the bell. So back to your corner for some water. We've got a 30-second break. And then we're going into round 2. Seconds, people, and then we're back in the ring or your living room. Okay, my people, listening now. All right, so next round we've got pyramid round. All right, so watch out first. So first punches now. We've just done the first part. It's going to be a jab, cross, hook, cross. That's going to stay the same, okay, the whole time. We're going to do 1 set of those. From there, we've got 2 uppercuts for speed, like we just did. All right, but what we're going to do, we're going to pyramid the uppercuts by 2. All right, so first round, you'll go, wah, bam, 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 1, 2. Second time, you're going to go, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4, 4. Then go back to the same combo. 6. All right, pyramid those uppercuts up to 10, then start back at 2. Remember, the first combo stays the same, so it's just going to be jab, cross, hook, cross. The only thing that changes is the uppercuts. So start with 2, combo again, 4, combo again, 6, 8, 10, and then back to 2 for your 3-minute round. All right, people, let's get sweaty now. Come on. Round number 2, pyramid round. Let's go, get ready. You got it. Make sure you're comfy. Let's go in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Once you get to 10, then you start back at 2. Keep it going, people. Come on. Spin it down now. Keep that going. Come on. Jab, cross, hook, cross, pyramid, the uppercuts. Keep it going. Keep it going, people. Last minute now. Come on, last minute. That's all, people. Speed now. Last 40 seconds. Come on. Keep that combo up. 30 seconds. Seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's time, people. Well done. Tough round that was. Back to your corners. Water break. A well-deserved 30 seconds. Around that one. 10 seconds, people, and we are back in the ring. All right, people, join me back in the ring now. Climb through those ropes, come on. All right, so third round, we've got another pyramid round mixed in with legs. All right, let's work on those legs. All right, so, this is there, okay. So, pyramid round mixed with legs. So, for the round now, we're gonna mix straights with uppercuts. All right, shoulders and back should be nice and warm from throwing those super quick uppercuts in the last round. All right, so watch this. So we've got 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, nice and quick. And then we've got 6, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 6. Once you've done 6, we have 6 lunge pulses, okay, 3 each side. So watch me in your lunge here. 1, 2, 3, and then we change legs. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So, and then we go straight back to the combo. So watch again. It's 2s, 4s, 6, and then we've got 3 of those each side. Okay, let's try that round now, people. Let's go. So pyramid and legs together. All right, people, back in the ring now. Let's go. Get ready. Let's start that pyramid in 3, 2, One, start with 2, let's go. Once you've done your lunges, go straight back into that combo. Keep it going, people. First minute down, keep that going, come on. Keep that going, people, come on. This song's named Energy, keep the energy, come on. Keep it going. Last minute coming up, keep that going. Last 30 seconds, people. Keep at it now. Come on. 10 seconds, people. Come on. Three, 2, 1, and there's the bell, people. Back to your corners. Another well-earned water break. Get your mats handy for the last round. Seconds, people. Okay, fourth and final round, people. We got there. All right, last round. We've got combos mixed with abs this time. Okay, so combo, it's gonna stay the same the whole time. Same combo we did in the first round and the second round. So again, jab, cross, hook, cross. We've done it a few times now, so get that full body into it. Okay, twist those hips, turn the feet towards the punch. Punch again, jab, cross, back foot turns, left foot turns, bam, back foot turns. All right, watch again. Wow, 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 wow. And all my power, I'm pushing my foot hard into the floor. So watch. Wow, wow, Almost taking off there. All right. So we're going to repeat that combo 10 times, and then we're going to hit the floor for 2 exercises times 10 reps. Okay, so watch. First one is full sit-ups. Up here. For 10. Next one is bicycles. So here. For 10. All right. Once you've done your 10 and 10, back up for your combo for 10 reps. All right. So 1, 1, 1, 1. That's 1 rep. All right. 10 reps. Then we're down here. 10 of those. Bam, 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 bam. And then 10 elbow to opposite knee. All right. Let's go, people. 4th and final round. Let's go, people. Get ready. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Start with your combo. Once you do your combos, straight to the mat. Keep going, people. Back on, people. Let's go. Halfway now. Combos, 10 full sit-ups, 10 bicycles. Keep it going. Last minute now, people. Let's go. Let's go, people. Keep working. Keep it going now, people. Come on. 15 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and time, people. Well done. All right, give yourself a 30-second break, and then we'll cool down and stretch off. Well done. All right, people. Back to the middle now. Let's calm that body down. Get ready. So we'll start off with side steps, okay? We step in side to side in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, open the gates, open around. Now close the gates. Okay, next side to side now. Into shoulder. Okay, half circle with the arms. From here to here. Let's go. And to the sides. Keep your arm nice and high. Change arms. To the sides. Okay, with the hips, nice and wide. Change directions. Front to back. Last one. Knees together. Bring your heel to your bum. Change legs. Shake it all off, people. And that's time. Well done, people. Big pat on the back. First box exercise session in the bag. Daniel, are you around? I've seen you before. Daniel on the call.
Yeah, yes. Just
Yes.
1 second. Just okay. Okay, can you see me? Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah. My video's on. I don't know.
I think I'm still highlighted, maybe.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for Orlando for that wonderful session. Is that the circuit done for abs? Are we moving on to upper body?
Pardon?
I said, are we still doing? Are we done with circuits? Are we moving on to upper body? Because I know we've done legs, then you moved on to abs.
Yeah, so that was the last segment. So we did 6 weeks and we rotated between upper body, lower body, and abs. We did each one twice, and now it's box exercise. But box exercise does incorporate some body work as well, body weight exercises.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, as Orlando said, next week we'll have our box exercise session, and every Tuesday we'll be back here for another Healthy Heart session between 6 and 7:30.
Yep.
Well, 6 to 7 for the session, and then 7 to half 7 for the exercise session. So make sure to tune in for both. Come again next week to find out what to join us for another session, and look on our socials. We'll let you know what the topic will be, because I'm not aware of it right now. But yeah, any last words, Orlando, from you?
Yeah, well done to everyone that was involved, whether via Zoom or Facebook or YouTube. And yep, just be in tune for the next 6 weeks. We'll do a lot of fitness, a lot of boxing combinations, and have some fun. So make sure to tune in, people.
Okay. Thank you, Orlando. And with that, wish everyone a good night. Take care.
Good night, people. Bye.